Last night, WWE held its Bad Blood PLE, 27 years to the day of the first one in the very first Hell in a Cell match between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, which featured the debut of Kane and Vince McMahon's last night as a full-time commentator. It was a bloody match, on one side anyway. I mean, Shawn Michaels was bleeding a gusher. I'll never forget him bleeding. They're on top of the cell, and he's bleeding from the top of the cell through the mesh fencing down onto the camera lens, because the cameraman's in the ring just aiming up, and he gets blood on the lens, and the cameraman just starts cussing. He was like, ah, shit. Or maybe he dropped an F-bomb. I forgot what it was, but he was not happy. But last night, Bad Blood was a 2-match show. Now, that's 2 matches out of 5, which is still not great, but 2 out of 5 is better than having 2 good matches on a 7 or 8 match card. You take out this Hell in a Cell match, though, and this show was fucking terrible. One of the worst all year, in a year of some really great shows. So that Hell in a Cell made all the difference in the world. CM Punk said his goal coming into last night was to bring Hell in a Cell back to what it used to be, to restore it to its former glory. He and Drew McIntyre did just that, and they had an excellent match. Easily Punk's best match since his dog collar match with MJF. And if you go by his WWE career only, this was the best CM Punk match since his SummerSlam match with Brock Lesnar in 2013. It was brutal, it was bloody, it was exactly what the payoff to a feud like this should look like. They didn't have to leave the cell, they kept it inside, there were no crazy bumps or falls off the top. Both men promised coming in to make the other bleed, and they did. Although I thought McIntyre cut himself, it turns out he got busted open hard way by that toolbox shot to the head. That's why there was blood just literally leaking out of his skull. He needed 16 staples to close the wound. I sure hope he didn't tell Punk to hit him in the head with a toolbox as hard as he could to open him up, because that would be fucking stupid. I would like to think it was an accident, but I have my doubts. See, blood, when used sparingly, blood is a very effective tool in wrestling. You don't want to abuse it, you don't want to overdo it, but in a situation like this, in a match like this, with a stipulation like this, it can be very effective, it could add a lot to the match. But I would much rather someone who knows what they're doing cut themselves on the forehead with a razor blade than tell their opponent to bash them in the head as hard as they can with a fucking metal toolbox. I mean, that really is no better than hitting somebody in the head and not getting your hands up to protect a chair shot. Now, Punk wins to put an exclamation point at the end of their feud. They opened the show with this when they absolutely could have closed, but as I said coming in, unless they had some big angle planned for the tag team match or a big heel turn or something like that, then Hell in a Cell should have closed the show. As it turned out, they did have something big planned, and it makes total sense why they did not close with this. But this was the best thing on the entire show, and it wasn't even close. The main event, it was good, but it was a distant number 2 to this. So what's next now for CM Punk? Is it Gunther at Survivor Series for the World Heavyweight Championship? That was one of the rumors going around a few weeks ago. Last night, Bill Goldberg made a cameo on the show. He was in the crowd. They were in Atlanta, right, his home turf. And Gunther was taunting him, and Goldberg hopped the barricades. Security intervened. They stopped him from getting into the ring. It was as if they were teasing a future match between the two of them. And someone left me a comment about Goldberg possibly costing Gunther the World Heavyweight Championship tomorrow night against Sami Zayn, and then doing Gunther against Goldberg in Saudi Arabia. And then just have Gunther win the belt back after that. Not that they were advocating it, because that's a fucking awful idea, but just putting it out there is something that, do you think that this is possible? I can't say it's not possible, but I sure as hell hope that doesn't happen. And I don't see how Sami Zayn needing an assist from Goldberg is going to help Sami Zayn in any way, especially if he just turns around in a month and loses it back to Gunther. I just don't see what the point of that would be. I'm hoping last night was just a segment to pop the crowd in Atlanta and nothing more. For Drew McIntyre, what do I think is next for him? I don't know what's next for him, but I think he should either request a trade to SmackDown or go nuts and want to go after Punk again to the point where Adam Pearce says, you know what? Raw is not big enough for the both of you. And he works out a deal with Nick Aldis to trade McIntyre to SmackDown in exchange for a player to be named later. And that player turns out to be AJ Styles. Because I think that would be not a totally even trade. I mean, AJ has not had the kind of year that McIntyre has had, but AJ is still a former WWE champion. He's still looked at as a top name in the company. The fans, I think, still look at him that way. They like him. So I think it would be an even enough trade that it wouldn't feel lopsided if you did 1-for-1 like that. That's what I would do. After Hell in a Cell last night, everything in the middle of that show was very underwhelming. Nia Jax retained her title over Bayley with a distraction assist from Tiffany Stratton, who once again teased a potential cash-in but did not actually follow through. Tiffany has not won a singles match, since March. Think about that. All right, because we know Tiffany is going to be, a women's champion and a headline attraction in that division for years to come. She has not won a match, one-on-one, since March. And she's mostly been a loser since winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. They do this with everybody. The sooner they have her cash in and win that title, the better. The match itself, I didn't think the match itself was anything special. Damian Priest pinned Finn Balor. Good old Finn Balor. For a match with such history behind it between these two, I expected more. It was fine, but that's all it was. It was just fine. And Priest overcomes interference from the Judgment Day. He wins anyway, so I don't know where you even go with this now, given that Priest won. He basically won a handicap match. That would seem to be it. Liv Morgan is still the women's world champion. She found a way to beat Rhea Ripley, even with Dominic Mysterio hanging over the aisle in a shark cage. This was not nearly as good as their SummerSlam match, or with as much heat as that match had, not even close. It felt very flat, and the finish was even flatter. You had Raquel Rodriguez return. She attacked Rhea for the disqualification. Liv didn't have Dominic, so she called up the reinforcement. She called up an old friend to be her muscle. Makes sense, given the history that Raquel has with Rhea and with Liv. The problem is she's been gone almost the entire year, and even when she was there, she wasn't over. So you take somebody who wasn't over to begin with, and you throw them out there after so long, and I guarantee you, more than half the people in that arena last night, they said 16,000 people, more than half the people in that building didn't even know who she was when she showed up. Guarantee it. And the ones that did just didn't give a shit. And they groaned at the lame DQ finish. But what it does is it extends things a little bit longer before Rhea eventually gets the belt back. Let her win the belt back when we get a little bit closer to the end of the year. Let her work with Raquel first before she gets one last match with Liv. I don't think there's enough juice left in this feud to hold off on that, title change until WrestleMania. I really don't. But Saturday night's main event, or that first Raw on Netflix to the beginning of January, that would be the best time, I think, to do the title change. Put the belt on Rhea. Rhea then transitions into whatever it is that she's going to be doing at WrestleMania. In the meantime, you could do Team Liv against Team Rhea at Survivor Series in the Women's War Games match, because what the hell else are they going to do for Women's War Games this year? Team Rhea and Team Liv, it's really the only thing that makes sense to me. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes, they beat the Bloodline. Solo Sikoa and Jacob fought too. This was Roman's first match since WrestleMania. It was carried by the star power in this match. The draw here was Cody and Roman tagging for the first time. That was the real draw. The match itself was good, but this was really about two things. Two returns. One during the match, one after the match. First, we had the return of Jimmy Uso, who showed up to fight off Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, which led to Solo being speared and pinned by Roman Reigns. And then the return afterwards of the final boss, The Rock, made a surprise appearance at the very end of the show, coming out on stage in his vest. He had his Brahma Bull belt draped over his shoulder, the Brahma Bull belt that he says was gifted to him by Muhammad Ali's widow at the Hall of Fame. Technically, yes. After WWE made the belt to give to her for her to give to him. Makes it sound like she came up with the idea herself. Maybe she handcrafted the belt with her own bare hands. So he threw his fingers up to show, 1, 2, 3, and then he made a throat slash gesture before he walked out. And he left Roman and Jimmy and Cody in the ring together to wonder what he was referring to. Leave it to Dwayne to once again take Punk's main event spot away from him. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Time is a flat circle. There were a lot of people who got very angry when I made that comment on Twitter last night. I think they took it very seriously. And they were like, well, you realize that Dwayne is the bigger star than Punk is. Really? I didn't know. I had no idea. And here I thought CM Punk was the worldwide movie star. I stand corrected. Edgar 5799482 with an egg for a profile image. I stand corrected. I can admit when I'm wrong. But The Rock came out, he got a monstrous reaction. And there were rumors about him possibly being there. Pat McAfee sort of let it slip the other day. I know he was in Atlanta. There were pictures of him at some basketball game or football game, whatever it was. Most people in the building, I don't think, were expecting Rock to come out. So they blew their stack as soon as they hit his music. The Rock being back, really, if you think about it, is the unofficial kickoff to WrestleMania season. Now, what did the throat slash mean? Was it a signal to Roman and Jimmy that because they helped Cody, they're in his crosshairs now? They've disgraced the family. Or was it a sign not to Roman, but to Cody, that he pinned him at WrestleMania 1, 2, 3, and he's coming for that title just like he promised he would? Or was it, as some people said in the comments last night, a reference to a possible triple threat match with Cody, Roman, and The Rock for WrestleMania in Las Vegas next year? I think if you do that, you do a triple threat match with those three, I really think it takes something away from a future singles match between Rock and Roman. If the first time they're on opposing sides is going to be in a triple threat with Cody Rhodes thrown in there. It's just how I feel. I'm not saying that Rock and Roman won't still be big box office, but I think you take some of the edge off if you give it away first in a three-way instead of just doing it one-on-one. Now, we don't know who that message was intended for. That's the cliffhanger. The Rock never said a word. They want you to tune into SmackDown this week to find out if he's even on the show. I'm surprised we got him back now. I really am. I didn't think we would see him back on TV until Raw moved to Netflix. How Rock might play into Survivor Series this year and a War Games match involving the Bloodline also is a question that has to be asked. Jimmy is finally back, and he's aligned with Roman. Jay is on Raw. He's the Intercontinental Champion. He's doing his own thing, and he has had nothing to do with any of this Bloodline stuff. Sam emailed me. I want to give a shout out to Sam in Lancashire, UK. And he suggested one easy way to get Jey Uso involved with the Bloodline again before Survivor Series. And it would be to have Sammy and Jay, and they had teased this a couple of months ago, and then they dropped it cold. Because clearly the creative changed, and they decided to go a different way with it. But if they wanted to, Sami Zayn and Jey Uso were talking about going after the tag team titles on Raw. You can have them link up again. Once this stuff with Sammy and Gunther plays out, because he's gonna lose tomorrow night. And that probably won't be the end of the issue between Sammy and Gunther, but let's say after that, Sammy and Jay decide, you know what? We're going to go after the Judgment Day. We're going to go after those Raw tag team titles before Crown Jewel. And they win them. And then at Crown Jewel, they wrestle the Bloodline, who are the SmackDown tag team champions right now. And this ties into the Crown Jewel stuff I'm going to talk about in a second, because they're doing champion against champion with the men and the women on that show. They did not say anything about the tag team titles, though. So I don't think that they're doing that, on the tag team side. But if they did, you do champions against champions. I mean, hell, if it were me, I would make it a unification match and just go all the way with it so we get one set of tag team champions. But however the match goes, if they do that, coming out of it, you can easily get Jay and maybe even Sami Zayn involved with the Bloodline story, and you can get them involved in a War Games match. So it's not a bad idea. I don't get the sense that the whole champion against champion brand warfare thing, I don't think they're doing it with the tag teams, but they didn't say they're not. So you can't discount it as a possibility. On Instagram after, The Rock, he was live streaming on IG as he was walking out of the building. He said there's been a lot of bullshit going on the last 6 months. He didn't elaborate on what that bullshit is. So we'll have to wait for TV and find out why he's back. Why is he back now? That's the question. Why is he back now? Something else I pointed out last night, Solo Sikoa takes yet another loss. For a guy who said that wins and losses have consequences, which is the whole reason why he took over from Roman as the tribal chief, you would think that all of this losing would lead to some consequences for him. He lost at SummerSlam, he lost the rematch to Cody in the steel cage, and he took the loss to Roman last night. They've done a far better job of protecting Jacob Fatu than they have protecting Solo Sikoa, the supposed leader of this bloodline. Makes you wonder, why? Why is that? Are they setting up for Jacob to take over as the leader? Be funny, he goes around every week yelling, "I love you, Solo." Right? He did it last night like 1,000 times. "I love you, Solo." Maybe one day they'll just be in the ring and he'll just randomly say, "I hate you, Solo." And Solo's eyes get all wide, and then Jacob just kicks him in the fucking face. But that wasn't the only big angle that they shot last night. After the show was over, during the press conference, the press conference was taking place on the inside, and I did not get a chance to see the press conference yet. But as that was going on the inside, Kevin Owens, who did not have a match on this show, he confronted Cody Rhodes outside Cody's bus in the parking lot. And fans were filming the entire thing. I was just getting word about this before I went live. I'm literally about to go live. And I didn't believe it at first. I thought people were just trolling when they said that Kevin Owens just attacked Cody Rhodes and turned heel. But that's exactly what happened. He kicked the living shit out of the WWE champion and left him laying. And then he took off in his Lamborghini. That may be the biggest takeaway from all of this, that Kevin Owens drives around in a $200,000 sports car when he's on the road. The fucking door lifts up. It's like he's climbing into a DeLorean. And off he goes. My first thought was, why are they shooting this off camera when they have been teasing this heel turn on TV now for the last couple of months? Why do it on social media? Why do it the same night that The Rock comes back? Because The Rock is just going to overshadow everything. I mean, he just sucks the oxygen up in the room, and you can't breathe. Having now gone back and watched the entire clip, I think it was pretty cool the way that they did it, with the fans all around filming and reacting to it the way they did and losing their minds, not knowing what it was that the two of them were arguing about before KO attacked him. It made it feel real. It made it feel genuine, in a way that a lot of segments on TV sometimes don't. So it was different. Different can be good sometimes. So I thought it was well done. I still question why you would do it the same night that The Rock came back and not save it for Friday. But I've been saying for weeks now, they desperately need heels on SmackDown. So the Owens turn was the most predictable of the turns they could do, but I think it was necessary. And it's another hook now for the show. Why did Owens do what he did, right? Why now? Why in the parking lot? Why was he so upset at Cody that he had to drive up to Cody and kick his ass? What did Cody do? Did Cody text him a dirty joke about his wife? Like, what did Cody do? And how is Randy Orton going to react to all this? Is he next? Is he the next one to drop Cody on his ass? But with The Rock coming back and teasing the match with Cody, I'm not sure where that leaves a possible Cody Rhodes-Randy Orton feud now. I just can't see Cody losing the title now before WrestleMania. So we have more questions than answers coming out of last night. I don't think that's a bad thing. Let's be honest here. SmackDown could use the boost. This show has been terribly dull for a while now. Like, this has been a problem with SmackDown now for at least 3 months. You can have one really good SmackDown, but there have been a lot of very dull, average, boring fucking episodes of SmackDown this summer. Rock coming back and Owens going heel is just what that show needs to give it a kick in the ass and make it interesting again.